These are the 5 signs you're actually closer to owning a home more than you might even realize. And it's not your credit score or the size of your down payment. That just means you qualify. It doesn't mean that you're ready. Most people wait for years to feel like it's the right time, when in fact, they're already past the finish line. And every month they wait, they're paying off someone else's mortgage instead of their own. But they don't need to if they just have a few of these 5 signs. Now, I've seen this a lot because I'm a mortgage expert that's helped hundreds of families buy their first home. So let's talk about sign number 1. So here's how this works. I'm gonna give you 5 signs and just tally up how many you pass. Then at the end, if you have 3 or more, you're genuinely above average and more than ready than most. And no worries if you come up short. You'll know exactly what things to actually work on. And you'll also notice that credit score and down payment aren't on the list. That's on purpose because that's just the price of admission and it's not what sets you apart. Because if those are the real signs, then nobody would actually get burned by buying a home with high credit and a high down payment. But people get burned every single day. So these 5 signs are why. So let's start with number 1. Sign number 1, you ignore your max pre-approval. Here's what the average buyer does. The bank says, hey, great news, you're approved for $500,000. Let's just use that as a number here. And in their head, that becomes the goal. How can I buy $500,000? The above average buyer hears that same number and treats it like a ceiling that you do not hit. Almost like how if you have a credit card limit, you shouldn't hit that limit or the ceiling at all, because here's what no lender will ever tell you. Your max approval is not what you can afford. It's just what the bank is willing to risk on you. So those are 2 completely different things, okay? The bank doesn't know that you want to have kids, right? So we just had our first baby boy and he's about 2.5 weeks old since I'm filming this. And as a side note, he's apparently in this witching hour stage. I don't know, comment down below if you know what that is. No one told us about this, just like how a bank's not going to tell you about, planning for the kid's future. Second is, on the lender application, there's also no question that says, hey, do you plan on having kids? They don't ask that at all, right? It also doesn't know your drive to work. It's about to change, right? It doesn't know the house needs $15,000 of repairs in year 1. It just looks at your income and your debt and then spits out the biggest number it can. So if you aim for that number, you're letting a computer that never met you pick your whole life for the next 30 years. So how do you actually find this real number? The comfortable one. This is my favorite part. I call it the homeownership free trial. It's actually a process that I developed. Let me show you. Okay, so here's how it works. If you're renting right now, first, I want you to take, 33% of your before tax income. If you want to be on the more conservative side, then I want you to do 33% of your after-tax income. So let's just say for easy math here, you make $10,000 before taxes and 33% of that is $3,300 a month. Then I want you to take your rent. So let's say your rent is $2,500 a month. The gap between renting and owning a home is $800 a month. So before you buy a home, you set up an auto transfer every month. That $800 leaves your checking the day the rent's due and goes straight into the next part, which is transfer to a high yields savings account. I call it the HYSA. And I want you to name it a different account than that. Okay, so I want you to call it, something cool like Freedom, right? Because I want you to have that psychological win whenever you open up that account. So here's the bonus tip. Turn off Face ID and don't auto save the password for this Freedom account. You want to make it a little annoying, add some friction, right, on purpose, because if it's a pain to get in, you won't touch it. Now, here's the beautiful thing. You're not gambling with any of your money. You're not investing in a market that could go down. You're just running a free trial. If at the end of the month, you're like, oh man, I actually don't have enough money for my bills, then you just move the money from your Freedom account back to your checkings and savings account, right? All for free. Now, what I love about this is you get to learn what's a comfortable hypothetical payment. And if it is, great. We can bump up the hypothetical monthly payment by $500 a month, redo the exercise and see if it's comfortable. And if it's not comfortable, then you can actually lower it by $500 a month until you find that sweet spot. And real quick, before we move on to sign number 2, right now you might be sitting there wondering, okay, but am I actually one of those ready buyers, or am I not? That's actually why I built the free homebuyer readiness quiz. It takes less than 30 seconds, and there's no credit check at all. It tells you straight up if you're one of the most prepared buyers or if there's something to fix first. And here's the cool part. That homeownership free trial that I just walked you through, wha-bam, you actually get a copy of this as a free bonus guide. So it also comes with like a free little planning guide at the very end, and you get the fun handwritten drawings as well. So if that at all sounds interesting to you, check it out in the link down below. It's my gift to you, completely free. So sign number one is about being honest about your payment that we just talked about. But even if you nail your comfortable payment, there's a second thing that average buyers get wrong. It's not about the house going up, it's about the house going down. It's like, what? Let me explain. So sign number two, you stress test the home value going down. So the average buyer walks in treating one thing like it's fact of life. This house is going up in value every single month and every single year. And look, over a long enough time horizon, that is true. But Mike Tyson said it best, right? Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face, right? Usually and always are two very different words when it comes to the biggest purchase of your life. All right, the above average buyer does something that nobody at the closing table will do for them. They test the downside before they make the offer. Think about it. Every stock, every fund you've ever seen has this line: past performance doesn't guarantee future results. The government makes them say it. But when you buy a home, the biggest purchase of your life, there's no warning label at the closing table, right? Nobody asks you the scary question. So you have to ask it for yourself. So here's how you do it. Find a home you like, or go to general market trends for your market, right? So let's choose Dallas, for example. Now you go back in the timeline for 5 years and pretend that you bought it. Now you actually look, what is it worth today? So we go back in time and then we get to see, what is it worth? If you bought in a market like Dallas, you might be, in the same, price point. If you bought in Austin, you might be a little down or a lot. If you bought in Southern California, you might actually be up a little bit, even though that rates are high. It's kind of crazy, right? So either way, this question is going to be a very powerful question. Could you live with it if you've bought high and then had to sell low? Could you keep making the payments and wait for the market to, come back up? It will at some point. It's just a matter of when. If yes, and you answered yes, you've got a rock solid foundation. If no, you just learned something huge before it even costs you a dime. Because here's the truth. If you can survive, the downside, the upside takes care of itself. So the families that I work with in 23, 24, and 2025 who ran this test, when the market got soft, they didn't panic and sell. They wrote it out, and that's the whole game. Okay, so you can survive the house dropping in value, but surviving takes one thing, money in the bank. And this is where the numbers get a little uncomfortable, right? Because what I'm about to show you is the gap between what most people actually have saved and what a more than ready buyer has just sitting around. Sign number three, you have reserves after closing, not just for the down payment. Here's the mistake, and I made it myself too on my very first home. They take every single dollar, and I did too, and I dumped it into the down payment. Then you close on the home, they're house rich. I wasn't house rich either, but some people who will empty their bank account, right? And then a week later, their AC dies. AKA, this also happened to me, because in my first house in Florida in August, let that sink in on how hot it is in Florida during August, sweating through everything. And I didn't have a landlord to call. I was the landlord. So I had to open up a new credit card. I do not recommend this for anybody, but I had to open a credit card just to pay for the new AC system thing, right? So let me tell you what the above average or more than ready buyer actually does. The typical American household has about $8,000 in the bank. Total, checking, savings, the whole shebang. And get this, only 46% of adults have enough saved up to cover 3 months of bills. So if you close on your house and you still have months of payments sitting in your bank, untouched, separate from your down payment and closing costs, you're not just above average. You're like in a tiny slice of the whole country. And I know this doesn't feel like it because you only know your situation, but I'm speaking from experience and seeing everyone else's finances, okay? One other thing to note is, notice I said separate from your down payment. So the more than ready buyer never counts their down payment as their safety net. The down payment is gone the day you close. Your reserves are what catches you when, unexpected stuff happens in your life, right? For emergency funds. So how many months should you have is probably something you're asking. Well, it actually depends on how you get paid. If you're on a salary, a steady paycheck, I want you to have at least 6 months of payments saved. Now, again, if you're watching this video and you're at 3 months or you have no reserves, that's okay. Let's try to prioritize progress over perfection, right? The fact that you're making progress is the right move instead of getting stuck in analysis paralysis. The other thing is, if you're self-employed, your income's bumpier for sure, like 1099, things like that. So I'd push for 9 months or more. And if you're a business owner with employees, you've got people relying on you, you've got payroll and other things that can go wrong, right? I want you to have 12 months or more. So the less steady your income, the bigger the cushion should be. And now we're 3 signs deep now. So you're clearly serious about doing this right. By now, you're probably keeping score in your head, okay, wondering where you actually land. That free homebuyer readiness quiz does that scoring for you, and it's something that I built. It takes less than 30 seconds, no credit pull, and it tells you straight up if you're ready, and if you're not, or if there's a gap, it sends you the exact video on how to fix that one thing. It's free, it's my gift to you. Check it out in the link down below. Okay, let's talk about sign number 4. So your income is predictable and you're planting roots. Let me explain. So the average buyer asks, hey, can I afford this today? The more than ready buyer asks a better question. Will this still make sense 5 years from now? Because buying a house and getting a mortgage isn't just a today decision. It's a 30-year promise. So we should have enough weight with that decision. So 2 things I want you to be honest about. First is your income steady? I mean, same kind of work, about 2 years or so, and ideally going up, not just, sideways or down. If you're switching careers or, your whole industry feels a little shaky with all the AI stuff, that should change the math, right? Because again, if your career isn't stable, that could be a big question that we should want to solve for, right? Now, again, if you just switched careers and you just started a new job, it doesn't mean that's a no, it just means be careful. But if you know that your income is headed up, that's good news. I call that the shrinking mortgage effect, right? So your payment stays fixed for 30 years or whatever, years that you get, but your raises keep growing, assuming that you have a high probability of that. So the payment feels smaller and smaller every year. So ask your parents this: if they own a house, if they felt stretched when they first bought their home, they'll probably say yes, but then they'll make a joke that their house was like $20,000, right? It was like cars are more than that now. And then I want you to ask them about how that payment feels now, or if they even have a mortgage payment. They'll of course laugh. That right there is what you see is the effect of the shrinking mortgage effect. Second pillar that we want to look at, are you actually staying put, right? This is the location stability. Most homes don't pay you back on day one because of closing costs, moving expenses, repairs, all that stuff. You start out a little behind, and that's completely normal. It takes a few years to climb back to even, and then the rest is, profit from there. For most buyers, that point is around that 5-year mark. So the more than ready buyer doesn't just ask, do I like this house? They ask, what would make me have to leave? So it's the opposite thinking, right? Is it a baby? Is it a job? Is it a breakup? And they're honest about how likely each of those will happen. If you can see yourself in 5 years in this house, you're playing it right. All right, so we got the reserves, we got the timeline. On paper, you're more than ready than almost most people out there. But there's one last sign, and it's the one that nobody can answer for you, not your realtor, not your lender, not even me, because this one isn't about money, it's about you. So sign number 5, you know why you're buying. I call it the North Star. So the average buyer is just chasing a, checkbox, right? You graduate, you get a job, you get married, you buy a house. Sometimes the order gets swapped around, but that's the script, right? The American dream. The pressure to hit the next box is very real. Trust me. Sometimes I talk to clients and I say, hey, what's making you look into buying a house? Because obviously rates are on the higher end now, stuff like that. They're like, yeah, my parents said it's a smart idea. I'm like, whoa, well, your parents are going to pay the bill, right? If they are, great. That sounds amazing. But in reality, most parents aren't going to pay your mortgage. So here's the problem with making a $500,000 purchase or choice just because it's the next thing you're supposed to do. So those pressures are not reasons, okay? Just to be clear, they're not reasons. The above average buyer or more than ready is they actually have a North Star. They have a real why behind the buy. And I don't mean to be fluffy or anything like that, right? The reason why I say this is because your why is going to keep you on the same path when it's 2 a.m. in the morning and there's like a leak from the roof or plumbing issues or something like that, and you can't call your landlord. So the person who bought because their parents said so, they're going to resent their house. And more importantly, they're going to resent their parents because they felt like they made the decision for them. So that's not fair for you, not fair for them, not fair for anybody else who's making that decision for you. So the person who bought because they wanted to stop paying someone else's mortgage, because they wanted to, paint the walls any color that they wanted, because they wanted to blast the music and host their friends at their place, that person doesn't regret it because they made that decision themselves. And I also want to leave you with one other thing, because when it comes to making a big, massive decision, I know this has helped me from a framework thinking perspective, whether it's business, real estate, personal wise, is try to focus on not making a perfect decision, but try to focus on making a warmer, directionally correct decision, okay? Because trying to put all that weight on your shoulders with one, perfect decision is going to cause you to have analysis paralysis, right? You're not going to make a decision at all. However, if your goal is to get somewhat correct in the direction, and then you're going to get more information, you're going to watch another YouTube video. Hopefully it's me. If it's somebody else, no worries. You're going to get even closer, and then you're just going to make directionally small changes until you get to the finish line and things like that, right? So that's the best way to tackle a huge decision like buying a house. So with that being said, these are the 5 signs. Now what you want to do is add up your scores. If you counted 3 or more, you're genuinely above average and ready than most buyers. And if you came up short, that's okay. Like I mentioned in this channel all the time, progress will always beat perfection. And now you know the exact thing to fix, right? That's the beauty of it. And remember, the free homebuyer readiness quiz will also hand you the videos to do it right and to get ready. Now that you know whether you're above average or not, check this next video where I talk about how to figure out if buying versus renting makes sense for you in 2026. And guess what? It's not the typical YouTube video where it just focuses on financial reasons. It's missing the other half of the picture, the personal side,